Hello students. Once again I welcome you to my YouTube channel Ujwal's Biology Classes. Today we will be starting the chapter Cell, which is about the fundamental unit of life. It comes in your biology syllabus in class 9th. So let's begin with the chapter. So before moving on the chapter, I'll like to have a quick revision on certain facts which you have already studied in your earlier classes. Like what we know that all organisms, all living organisms are composed of cells. And each and every cell arises from a pre-existing cell. मतलब पहले से एक सेल जो आज मौजूद है उससे ही एक नया सेल जन्म लेता है. It is also said to be the fundamental, the structural and functional unit of life. So we are having three different words to suggest what is a cell. Now I'll be explaining each one of these. What do you mean by fundamental? Fundamental means the basic thing. A cell has exist independently. It can do each and every work, all the important functions of a body a cell can perform. Then we coming back to structural. Like we know that all the organisms body is made up of cells which also provide them the structure. Functional, it provides all the necessary functions, and in functions I'll be dividing it into physiological process and biochemical process. Physiological is a term which deals with all the life processes which are going inside our body. Like each and every cell requires food, requires oxygen, it breaks down the food to form energy, and finally the waste product are excreted out through the cell. So all these activities, taking in food, nutrition, respiration, excretion, and also reproduction of a new cell, these all comes under physiological process in our body. Coming to the second function, that is biochemical process. Now bio means the living cell and chemical relates to all the formation of the enzymes like digestive enzymes, hormones, molecules like proteins, our gene, the genetic material. These are all coming under the biochemical process. So once again, to summarize the points, cell is called the fundamental, it is the structural, and it is the functional unit of life. Now in this chapter we will be learning about the structure of the cell. What is there that is inside the plant cells and inside the animal cells. How the plant cells are different from that of the animal cells. Their structure we will be defining. Next, we will be learning about the various cell organelles which are inside the plants and animals. And also, we will not only be studying about the various organelles, but we will be also studying about their individual functions which help a cell to be fundamental, structural, and functional. Now, before moving on to the next slide, let us see a diagram in which we will be learning about the different levels of organization which is found in one organism. Starting, we have the atoms. As we know, there's all the living organisms are also matter because they occupy space and have mass. And so all matter composed of the very basic unit, again fundamental unit, that is atoms. So all the living organisms are also composed of atoms. Atoms together joins and forms molecules. Molecules now combine and form larger molecules in the form of macromolecules. Like the best example which is coming in my mind right now is that about the genetic material. the DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid, which is found in the nucleus of the cell, inside the chromosomes. Now, what is the function of the DNA? It helps in transmission of the characters. Like we say that genes are responsible for transmission of the characters from one generation into the other generation. So the DNA will be an example of a macromolecule. Next, we can take the example of the different kind of proteins or the enzymes which are present in our body. They all come under certain kind of macromolecules. Moving on further, we have the cell organelles, which are all specialized to do a special kind of work. Cell organelles together join and form a cell, which is covered by a cell membrane. Now here is the birth of a new cell or the birth of life. Now, some organisms are designed to have only one cell. Those are called unicellular organisms. Some, due to the complexity, different kind of cells join together to form multicellular organisms. So in multicellular organisms, we will be specially seeing a new structure, that is cells join together to form a specialized function, and cells joining together forms a tissue. Similarly, from here, all the parts will be coming under a multicellular organism. So tissues joining together will form a particular organ, say the kidneys, the stomach, the brain. All these are the different kind of organs. Organs, we know, join together helping in processing a definite work is known as the organ system. Like here you can see the stomach, the intestine, the small intestine, large intestine, liver. These all comprises of the organ system, the digestive system in our body. And finally, a lot of organ systems combine together, doing all their perfectly work and forming a organism. So now, beginning with the next topic, that is how, or who rather, discovered a cell. Now the credit of discovery goes to a scientist whose name is Robert Hooke, and the cell was discovered by him in 1665. Now what was he doing? Robert Hooke was examining a thin slice of cork under a microscope which was built by Robert Hooke itself. So now what is cork? For getting into cork, we can see the outer hard skin-like layer of the woody trees. This portion, this man over here is clicking out the cork portion. So this is your cork. Robert Hooke took a piece of cork and made it into a very thin slice. And then by taking that thin slice, he observed it under the microscope. So what he observed? So he observed that cork structure to be very small box-like structures, and it looked like just as the honeycomb. Now we know inside a beehive, the honeybee, makes a special structure where it can store all the nectar or the honey. So you can see this was the piece of cork which was examined by Robert Hooke, and these are the different kind of structures, the hexagonal structures which resembled like the honeycomb, and hence he named this boxes as cells. Now cells comes from a Latin word which means small room. Now we will be moving on to some different scientists who made their work very famous according to year-wise. Now many a times question asks that who is the discoverer of a living cell? The answer will not be Robert Hooke, because he examined a cork, and cork is generally a dead tissue. So the credit of discovering living cells, and that was also in pond water, goes to the scientist Anton von Leeuwenhoek. So from 1665 till 1674, there was a lot of discoveries which were taking place. And it was Anton von Leeuwenhoek who in the year 1674 discovered the free living cells inside pond water. Now, see, there is a lot of year difference, and by the processing of different kind of microscopes, because all these are microstructures, so for viewing them there will be a requirement of a very good microscope. So as technology advanced, very good microscopes were coming into the market, and as it was used by scientists to examine the internal structure of the cell. So as such, the prominent structure that over here also you can notice that this circular structure inside is very prominent. So this is nothing but the cell nucleus. So Robert Brown in the year 1831 discovered the nucleus inside the cell. Then there were two scientists, Sheldon and Shawn, who proposed the cell theory, and it was done in 1838 and 1839, 2 different years or so, because Sheldon did it in 1838 and Shawn discovered it in 1839. And what we presently know, the cell theory, the credit of cell theory goes to these two scientists. We will be also coming in a word, protoplasm. What is it? We will be studying it in our next slides. But this protoplasm was discovered by the scientist Felix Dujardin in the year 1839. Actually, Felix Dujardin discovered protoplasm, but the term protoplasm was coined by Purkinje. मतलब प्रोटोप्लाज्म का जो नामकरण था, वो नामकरण का श्रेय जाता है पुरकिंजी को. Finally, in 1855, this cell theory which was proposed by Sheldon and Shawn was a little bit modified, and Rudolf Virchow also added one point, and hence formed the model cell theory. Now, if we talk about cell theory, the main credit goes to Sheldon and Shawn, and the modification theory was given by the Rudolf Virchow. Moving to our next slide, we will be seeing the cellular composition in different organisms. Now here we will be seeing that based on the number of cells, how can we divide it into two categories. Now first one is that cells are having a single cell are termed as unicellular. That is, the entire body of the organism is composed of only one single cell which can perform each and every work for helping that cell to be living. There are certain examples like the amoeba, and this is the structure of the amoeba which comes under the microscope. You can see over here, these extended structures are known as the pseudopodia, or the false feet of the amoeba. Moving on to the next example, we have that of Chlamydomonas. Next, we have the Paramecium. And finally, we have the bacteria, the millions and millions of bacteria which are found in our universe. So I am sure that you have heard about the name of these organisms in class 8 chapter microorganisms. Moving on to the multicellular, that is the organism whose body is made up of many cells. Here we will be moving on to the structures like fungi. You have heard about fungi, that this is the non-green plant, that plant-like structures which do not have chlorophyll in them, and hence they do not perform photosynthesis. You can very well see that they are not green in color due to the absence of chlorophyll. So they are known as saprophytes because they take their nutrition from the dead and decaying organisms. So all these fungi are multicellular. Moving on to the plants. Plants are also multicellular. Plants, the name plant suggests only flowering plant, but this is not the case. We have very microscopic plants also. So we'll be studying it in the chapter diversity in organisms. And finally, we have all the animals, taking from the earthworm to an insect to the starfish to the birds, the animals like tigers, carnivores, herbivores, and the human beings. All comes under the topic animals. So multicellular are the fungi, the plants, and the animals. Whereas unicellular is amoeba, chlamydomonas, paramecium, and bacteria. Now talking about the shape of cells. Here also we will be having a look into two type of differences. Some cells constantly change their shape according to the structure, but some cells have a fixed shape and size. Some cells have fixed shape, which is the case in most of the plants and animals. Let us have a look of the different kind of shapes. First, we will be talking about the elliptical or the oval shaped cells. The best example of that is the fat cells which are seen in our body. Second, the shape will be the spherical shape. The best example will be the ovum or the egg cell of the female. That is also known as the female gamete. Moving on to the spindle shaped. Now spindle is a word which, like, I'll be talking about this through this example. This is a smooth muscle and you can see the ends of it are tapering and the middle portion is a little bulging. So this kind of shape is called spindle shaped. Moving to the next shape, it is a knobbed thread. And the best example will be that of the sperm, the male gamete. Thread because it is referred to the tail, and a knobbed head was this one. Moving on to the elongated shape. The best example will be the neuron or the nerve cell. And finally, we have the discoidal, that is the erythrocyte or the red blood cells which are inside our blood. Discoidal refers to disc, the flat disc-like structures. And the shape of the RBC is biconcave in nature. You have heard about the concave lenses. There is a cave-like portion. So here also the cells having a depression in the middle and bulging out of the appearance. Now, as I've said, some cells are there which keep on changing their shape, like the white blood cells. This is your white blood cell and the amoeba. So amoeba, as and when it sources its food, it moves, it changes its structure, and hence the shape of the cell is changing constantly according to the need of the organism. So here is a quick revision like elliptical, spherical, spindle shaped, knobbed thread, elongated, discoidal. These are some of the cells which have the fixed shape, and some cells which do not have a fixed shape. Those examples are the white blood cell and the amoeba. Moving on to the next slide, we will be talking about the size of the cells. Now here, like we all know that generally all the cells are microscopic. That is, they cannot be viewed with our naked eyes. We will be requiring an instrument which is also known as the microscope to get a better view of the cells. So the size of the cells, you can see it varies a great from micrometer, it is a smaller unit of the millimeter. So from 0.2 micrometer to 18 centimeter. So obviously anything which is in micrometer, it will be microscopic. Our eyes will not be able to view it. But when it comes to a structure of 18 centimeter, our eyes, naked eyes, can easily view it. Now, the typical cell of a multicellular organism ranges from about 20 to 30 micrometer. So all the cells in our body, mainly they are having the size of between 20 to 30 micrometer. There are certain exceptions which we will be talking about. Talking about the largest cell, we all know that it is of the ostrich's egg. So see, it is 15 centimeter in diameter with the outer shell, and if we remove the shell, it is around 8 centimeter. So see, I have given over here a diagram. This is the normal egg of a hen, and this is the structure of the ostrich's egg. So this is the largest cell. Moving on to the smallest cells. Now the smallest known cells are mycoplasma related organisms, which is also termed under PPLO, pleuropneumonia like organisms. I repeat, pleuropneumonia like organisms, and the example will be mycoplasma. So they are the smallest cells with a diameter of only 0.1 micrometer. And the human egg cell, that is the ova, is 0.1 mm in diameter. We have moved on to our next slide, that is the function of the cells. Here we will be also looking into a new term, that is division of labor. Now I relate to an example. Suppose you are given a kind of work to complete in a few days. So if you individually do that work, it will take a lot of time. But if you divide that work according to the expertise among your friends, that piece of work can be easily done in a very short period of time. So that distribution of the work or the labor is known as division of labor. And this is very well demonstrated in cells. Like all the multicellular organisms have different kind of cell organelles, and each cell organelle can easily do this division of labor. Next, the division of labor is also seen in the unicellular organisms. Like if I talk about the amoeba, it is composed of a single cell, but that single cell has different organelles which are doing the process of nutrition, which are doing the process of respiration, reproduction, each and every physiological processes which are going on in that particular amoeba is being done by different cell organelles. So the division of labor is also seen in those unicellular organisms. Now, the next part is that cell organelles together perform various functions which are necessary for keeping the cell living. Like each kind of cell organelle performs a specific function, as I have told you, like obtaining nutrition, getting respiration, clearing the waste material which is forming inside the cell, or rather forming a new cell, that is a new progeny of the cell. For example, we can say that the mitochondria which you have heard is only responsible for providing energy to the cells. If I talk about the ribosomes, they only are having the function to produce or prepare or form proteins which are necessary for the cell to be keeping in living. Here is a chart which also gives us the key cell functions. Like the cell has the external membranes, and these membranes interact with the outside world. Like we have heard about the plasma membrane. It is a semi-permeable membrane. Why? Because it restricts the passage of different kind of substances from in and out of the cell. Next, the nucleus, which is composed of chromosomes, and in the chromosomes there are genes in the genetic material, the DNA. So it codes the information and also helps in translating instructions from, like this is a new topic, you will be betterly understanding it, that when a cell reproduce, it will be passing on the entire characters to the newly formed cell. So it is done by the chromosomes and their genes, which is inside the nucleus. As I described about the mitochondria, its work is to create energy, which will be required by the different physiological processes. We have the endoplasmic reticulum, we have the Golgi bodies. We will be dealing with each and every of these cell organelles in detail in the coming slides. Now these are helping in making the proteins and to do a wide range of activities. So see, there are different kind of organelles which are creating different kind of functions, and together they are making a cell living. Moving on to the next theory, that is the cell theory, which is very, very important part for your point of view. Like as I have earlier suggested in the slides, that there were two biologists. Sheldon, the full name of Sheldon is Malthus Sheldon. He was a German botanist. I think you know about botany, the study of plants. So the botanist will be the person who studies about the plants. So Malthus Sheldon was a German botanist who in the year 1838 examined a lot of plants and said that all plants are composed of cells. Similarly, a year later in 1839, Theodore Schwann, he was a British zoologist. Now, who is a zoologist and what is zoology? Logy means study. Zoo means referring to the animals, because in a zoo we go to see the animals and not the plants. So zoologist was Schwann. So he examined a variety of animals and also found that all the animals was composed of cells. So these two biologists, Sheldon and Schwann, first proposed the cell theory. And what did they propose? They proposed that all the plants and animals are composed of cells, and that the cell is the basic unit of life. That in the first slide we have came under that what do you mean by the basic unit? It is the fundamental, the structural and the functional unit of life. So these 2 points were proposed by the Sheldon and Schwann. Year later, like in 1855, there was another scientist who came, that was Rudolf Virchow. He said that all the cells arises from free existing cells. He added this point, and now these 3 points make up the modified cell theory. So these 2 points was the previous cell theory which was demonstrated by Sheldon and Schwann, and Rudolf Virchow added 1 point and made the modified cell theory. Virchow told that all the cells which are dividing and the new cells which are forming are the result of the cells which presently exist in the universe. So this is known as the Sheldon, Schwann and Virchow cell theory. Now moving on to the next part, we will be seeing about the structure and the components of the cell. Here we have generally taken an eukaryotic cell. Now you will be saying, sir, we have not started eukaryotic or prokaryotic yet. But I will say that in class 8, you have heard about these 2 terms, the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell, on the basis of the presence and absence of nucleus. If the nucleus is absent, then it is termed as a prokaryotic cell. If the nucleus is present, it will be targeted as the eukaryotic cell. So here in this slide, you will be finding all the structure and components of specially a cell which is eukaryotic, that is, in which the nucleus is present. So we will be having a cell has 2 parts mainly in all the cells. It has a plasma membrane, which is also the outer covering. And if we remove the plasma membrane, all the internal contents which is inside the cell, it is togetherly termed as the protoplasm. In the previous slide, you have heard that the term protoplasm, who gave it? You can easily go through the previous slides. Purkinje scientist developed and coined the term protoplasm. So what is inside the protoplasm? Now protoplasm consists of the cytoplasm and the nucleus. I am sure that you had a very much confusion as to the two terms. What do you mean by protoplasm and what do you mean by cytoplasm? So again, talking about, if I take a cell, I remove the plasma membrane, that inside the plasma membrane, like when I remove the plasma membrane, all the cellular contents make up the protoplasm. And inside the protoplasm, we have the entire cytoplasm and we have our structure, that is the nucleus. So cytoplasm plus the nucleus makes up the protoplasm. Now what is there inside the cytoplasm? We know that inside the cytoplasm there are a lot of cell organelles. Now all these cell organelles we can differentiate into two types. Certain cell organelles have a membrane bounded structure. That is, these cell organelles have an outer membrane. And there are certain cell organelles in which the structure is not covered with any kind of membrane. So they are called the non-membrane organelles. So talking about the membrane bound organelles, we have a few like mitochondria, which provides energy. It is present in both the plant and animal cells. We have the chloroplast. You have heard about this, the chlorophyll containing plastids. And obviously we know that chlorophyll is mainly required in plant cells and not in animals, because animals do not perform photosynthesis. Therefore this structure chloroplast will be present only inside the plant cells. Moving on to, we have the Golgi apparatus or the Golgi bodies, and we have the endoplasmic reticulum. So these are certain kind of organelles which have or which are bound by an outer membrane. Coming to the non-membrane organelles, we have centriole, we have ribosome. Now ribosome is a thing which is present in both again plants and animal cells. In prokaryotic cell also, out of all these cell organelles, only it is ribosome which is present in a prokaryotic cell. And the function of a ribosome is to provide or perform to manufacture proteins. They are also known as protein manufacturing organelles. Talking about the centriole, we will be detailing it out in our next slides. Centriole is a structure which is found in animal cells and it helps during the cell division. So friends, till now I am concluding with this slide. If you think this video and presentation was helpful to you, then kindly go to the link which is provided, click on the link on your WhatsApp group, and the window will open up in my YouTube channel. So hit the like button, subscribe it, and share with your friends if you like this video. We will be coming up to the second part, in which we will be discussing about the different kind of cell organelles. We will be taking up each and every cell organelle and we will be discussing it in detail. Till then, thank you.